Okay, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Mrs. Brookman. I teach geometry at Lakeview. For those of you who go to Lakeview and take geometry, you should know who I am. But I just wanted to say hey, and I hope you guys are all doing well. So what I'm going to work out for you right now is number 3 on your Unit 5 Quiz 1 review. Sorry, that's a lot of words. For the review for your first quiz online. So Max, if you want to come around. What we have for this problem is a trapezoid. They want us to find this value for x, and then they want us to find the perimeter, which would be the distance around that trapezoid, and then the area, which would be if I shaded it in. So before we can do any of that, there's some measurements that we need. So in order to find perimeter, actually, I think it says find x first. It does. So let's just go through and find x. And then in the process, we'll probably get this one too, so we can find our perimeter. First thing I'm going to do is drop an altitude. Remember, an altitude goes from a vertice and is perpendicular to that other side, so it means it makes a right angle. And when I do that, I've got a 45-degree angle, a 90-degree angle, which means this is also 45. So I should have a 45, 45, 90 triangle. So what that tells me is I can use those relationships. So if you remember from a 45, 45, 90, or if you don't remember, I'm about to tell you, we take the two sides are the same. So since this is 45 and 45, it is an isosceles triangle. So those two sides are going to be the same. And the relationship is that if I know the side, I multiply it by radical 2 to get the hypotenuse. Since I'm going the other way, instead of going from side to hypotenuse, I'm going from hypotenuse to side, I'm going to divide by that radical 2. So what I'm going to do over here on my marker board is I'm going to take that 24 and I'm going to divide it by radical 2 to figure out the length of each side. So remember, we can't have a radical on the bottom, so to rationalize the denominator, I'm going to multiply top and bottom by that radical. So on the top, that leaves me with 24 radical 2, and on the bottom it leaves me with 2. And then with radicals, we multiply and divide insides with insides and outsides with outsides. So since the 24 and the 2 are both outside of radicals, I can divide them. So 24 divided by 2 gives me 12, and then I've got my radical 2. So that means that these measurements, so this side, actually I'm going to draw it down here. So this side right here is 12 radical 2, and so is the height of my trapezoid, which will come in handy when we go to find the area. You okay? Is that a sneeze? Bless you. Okay.
Thank you.
So same thing. I'm going to switch colors because I'm doing it in a different place, but I can also drop an altitude here from this vertex down to this, which also makes a right angle. I'm going to go ahead while I'm at it too and fill in. If this was 20 up here, that means that this side length here from here to here is also going to be 20. Did you get him on video?
Yeah.
Good. we'll keep that in there for you guys. All right. So my husband teaches PE, so that's his PE for the day. All right, so I know that since these are the same heights, they're the same part of the trapezoid, that this side also has to be 12 radical 2 because it's a height. And if this whole thing was 120 degrees, if I make a right angle here, that tells me that this angle that's left right here has to be 30 degrees to make up that whole 120. So what that tells me is that here I have a 30, 60, 90 triangle. So again, I can use my special right triangle relationships in order to find the missing sides of that. So right now I have the long leg. I know that because it's across from the 60. So to get from the long leg to the short leg, actually we are used to going the other way around. Usually we're going from short leg to long leg. We multiply by radical 3. So to go backwards, I'm going to divide by radical 3. So I'm going to take that over to my other marker board here because I've got some math I've got to work out. So I've got 12 radical 2, and I'm dividing that by radical 3 so I can find my short side. Let's see, I got to rationalize the denominator again. So this time it's the 3 on the bottom. So I'm going to multiply top and bottom by radical 3. which on the top gives me 12 radical 6. Again, insides with insides, outsides with outsides, so both of those are in. That's why I can multiply it. And radical 3 times radical 3 gives me 3. The 3 and the 12 are both outside, so that means I can reduce that to 4 radical 6. So that tells me my short side here, right? Yep, short side is what I was finding, is 4 radical 6. And then to get to the hypotenuse, the relationship here is I take the short side and times it by 2. So when I times this by 2, it becomes 8 radical 6 for the long leg. That makes sense, Max? Anything I need to clarify? No? Okay. All right, so then that gives me all of my measurements. So I'm going to leave that here, and I'm going to pull out a clean board to actually answer the questions that they're asking us. So first thing they ask us is just, what is x? So x is this whole length. You know what, I'm going to turn it this way. So x is this whole length here. So to find x, what I'm going to do is add the 12 radical 2. The 20 and the 4 radical 6 all together. So I would just enter that all in my calculator, and when I did that, I came up with 46.77 units. So that gives me my value for x, which is the first thing it asked for. The next thing it asked for was the perimeter. So that means I just need to add up all of my outside sides here. So I've got 24, starting here, plus 20, plus we found that side was 8 radical 6. Plus my bottom here, we just found up there was 46.77, or that was my x. So again, I just type all that in my calculator, and when I did that, I came up with 102.08 units. All right. Last thing this question asks us for is the area of our trapezoid. So the formula for the area of a trapezoid is that we take the height and we add the two bases together and divide it by 2. So that was something we had talked about in class before we left, but it's been a while. So if you forgot that, and anytime you're working through these, if you forget a formula, you can always Google it. You can always look back in your notes. There's a bunch of resources out there. So don't feel like you have to memorize all those things right now. Just go out, and if you need area of a trapezoid, Google area of a trapezoid and see what you're working with. All right, so now I've just got to plug in my numbers. So my height of the trapezoid was that 12 radical 2 right here. Okay, one of my bases was 20 up here, and then the other one is x, so I'm plugging in that value I got for x, and then I'm going to divide that by 2. So when I plugged that all into my calculator for area, I got 566.56. If you're having trouble getting that when you plug it in, make sure that when we're typing in a fraction like this, that we enter everything in the top and hit enter and then divide it by 2. If you type it in one long string, it's going to follow order of operations, and sometimes that's not what we want it to do. So here we want it to do the top and then divide it by the bottom. We measure area in square units. So I'm going to put in units squared. Also, I'm looking through my answers and noticed I forgot my units here. So that's how we would find x and then find the perimeter in the area of our trapezoid.